Welcome back to the daily workout where JobAdder have overtaken the session for the week. Today I have Mark Parsons joining me from One Up Sales. Morning, Mark.
Morning.
We're going to be looking at identifying KPIs to effectively retrain recruiters in business development. Notice the theme BD, BD, BD. So we're going to talk about why they're so important in recruitment. So, Mark, how are you this morning?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Luckily enough, my delivery this morning decided it was going to be wicked to turn up an hour and a half early to get me up at 7:30. So I'm about as late as I was going to be this morning.
Because the week I've had with this takeover has not had a good start. From technical issues to burst water mains, it would have topped my week had your delivery arrived right in the middle of it. That would have been even more. Like Angela would never invite me back again, probably. So let's get started. I'm going to go straight in with a few questions for you. What are the baseline expectations of KPI setting? So let's cover the basics.
So I'd say the basics of KPI setting in BD, you have to be realistic with your attempts. There's no point asking people who haven't really been doing BD recently, may need a bit of a refresher training course on it, maybe a little bit of motivation behind them to make 100 BD calls a day without any sort of guidance or target setting. Now, when you actually come to setting these realistic targets, you need to work out three key things. The number of activities that you're kind of aiming to get the results you want to achieve, the time frame that you're looking to do it in, and the target, which is not only just reasonable, but obtainable before you move it into stretch targets as well.
That's so true. It's like I've never seen people so easily demotivated when they have a target which is genuinely unrealistic. So it needs to be attainable as well, though. As would be my thoughts. So kind of looking around that, how do you know what a fair expectation is? So that's I could say to you, Mark, 1,000 calls a day, yeah, throw mud at the wall, go. You're going to get demotivated quite quickly. So how do those KPIs kind of get people honed in and thinking about the right thing?
I think everyone is a great way to put this is it's different horses for different courses. I could give you an example of KPI settings that we run for BD or what I've used previously for BD, and it may not be appropriate to your target market, to the level of seniority that you're talking to, because if the way you're speaking to hire a salesperson isn't going to be the way you're going to be speaking to hire a CTO, and those clients and companies are going to work completely different ways as well. I guess helping to be able to realistically set these goals, you need to be able to know your target market inside and out. There's no point saying that if you're recruiting for senior VPs of sales or CTOs, realistically, the number of roles there are per company are significantly lower. And in case you were hiring like team managers, software developers, all in their own right are going to need to be approached in a different way, which is going to drastically change your metrics. If you know you've only got, say, a 2,500 role placement across the UK. Obviously, these are just fictional numbers, of course.
Yeah.
But if you've then got like a small number of roles that you can potentially fill across a region or a patch, and you burn through all those calls on the first day because you're really excited, you want to be massively ahead of target, and the quality of the outreach drops as well, all of a sudden you're now fighting an uphill battle because a lot of these people are going to say no, push you back, or just move you straight to their spam. And
exactly.
There's nothing worse than putting together a perfect email, the perfect candidate, and then it never actually reaches the person's inbox because you've sent 6 previous emails in the last 3 weeks. Yeah. So setting the KPIs itself, I would start with a regional area where you're like, okay, cool. I know this is the sort of role that I'm hiring for across this region. I know I need to make this many calls is what I'm expected to do. How can I make sure the quality of my outreach doesn't suffer from that as well?
Yeah. And does that then reflect whether you have sort of 360 recruiters or 180? So obviously the 180 recruiters are the hunters. They're out sort of looking for the new roles and new business. Whereas a 360 recruiter who's doing a bit of both, can using those KPIs keep a 360 recruiter motivated as well?
Well, again, that kind of comes back to the time allocation you're going to dedicate. If you're going to target someone who's 180, who's solely focused on hunting, who's solely focused on bringing in that new business to help move the company along with the amount of clients that work for retainers eventually, or even exclusivity, then if you're targeting them on someone who's got half the amount of time as a 360 recruiter being targeted the same as half the amount of time, How on earth are they going to be motivated to hit their targets because they've literally got half the time to do it? So what I would recommend is, if you're going to do BD sessions, you set timed frames with it and go, this is the target we want to do. This is the number of emails, calls, videos, voice notes, interview, a variety of different platforms.
Audro, Willow, all the ones I mentioned yesterday.
I can't believe I just came out my mouth. I do apologise for that. I have a feeling that I'm going to get a lovely, lovely email or LinkedIn, but Audro is fantastic. A lot of the recruiters would use it too. He says,
so's interview, and I covered yesterday top 10 tools. And if someone's starting out in video and doesn't have these like a lot, they're more functional tools like Audro and Interview, then you could use the free version of like Vimeo or Vidyard just to get you started in that strategy. So that's what we were touching on yesterday. But if you're serious about it and want to lock that into your KPIs and get reports and clicks and things like that, then you do need to up your game a wee bit with regards to that. So here's a question for you. With during COVID, recruiters had it. I'm going to say recruiters had it easy. This is where I want to get pelters now. But what they did. It was like, there was loads of roles, and as we don't know what's ahead for the next sort of 6 to 12 months. Any tips for accelerating and getting back into that BD mode that people haven't had to necessarily do for the last 2 years?
So anything that's BD or sales related, it's mostly if your mindset, your tone and energy don't match what you're doing, then you're fighting an uphill battle. If you go into your BD session, you go, I really, really don't want to do this, then that's going to come across when you're talking to people. You have to be strategic for it. So we have a saying currently, which is biting the head off the frog. You'll see it everywhere, which is put the hardest 10 calls first at the start of your day, because the rest of it will go swimmingly. Brush up on your techniques. No one is perfect at BD. If you go across the entire sales industry and you ask, what's the perfect cold call opener, or what's the perfect BD template, everyone will say, well, this one kind of works. You can never stop learning to improve your BD because it's only going to increase your bottom line. So do your research, get yourself in the right frame of mind for it. Make sure you've got an allocated time block, which I keep stressing and talking about, but how are you supposed to be efficient if you don't know where the start and the end of the session is?
Yeah.
And more importantly, getting on with it and doing the hardest stuff first, because everything else just rolls through.
I think it's recording it as well. So I know we kind of tried to keep these sessions that they're not salesy and introducing who the people are on necessarily that we have talking, but recording KPIs. I've worked in places where our KPIs and targets have been recorded on Excel spreadsheets, and then we sort of move into the basic CRM dashboards. And even within JobAdder, we have basic. We've got good reporting as basics, and then we've also got analytics on top of that, which sort of deep dives into the data. But what I love about OneUp Sales from what I've seen around the platform is it sort of adds another layer onto that sort of KPI and reporting and how. How's a nice way to say it without getting kind of pointing the finger at salespeople? You're competitive, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And so are recruiters. They're competitive. There's a certain ego to like recruitment and sales and things. So what I loved about OneUp Sales is the gamification. Tell us about gamification.
So gamification is something that's starting to come a lot more across not just the sales and recruitment space, but even into higher education, for example. The idea of gamification is not to just say, you need to make 40 BD calls. If you don't do this, it's okay, cool. We'd like you to make 40 BD calls. If you do this, we're going to run this incentive to go behind it. And being able to gamify this stops people having to email out or being constantly asked who's in the lead of the competition. Because when you run an incentive, you want it to update in real time. If you update an incentive like twice a week, once on a Wednesday, once at end of play Friday, whoever's in the lead on Friday or thinks they are is going to take their foot off the gas because they don't know what's going on. But then at the end of the day, when they find out, it's too late to actually make that improvement. The idea of the incentive is to have it constantly updating, to have that constant battle between two people to get the desired behavioral effects from it. If I'm in third place and I know that I'm getting closer and closer and it's only Wednesday, I'm going for it. My team go for it. Any team would go for it if they're competitive, of course. But if I'm also in first place and I can see that second and third are gaining on me, I'm not taking my foot off the gas. I want to remain at the top. And because these update in like real time, instead of having to update a spreadsheet, send manual emails out, or even people have to walk up to the whiteboard and get out of their desk, which takes them out of their flow. All of a sudden, you've got people constantly doing their BD. You've got people constantly motivated to do it. And you've actually got the real desired behaviors that incentive does. Because I can guarantee there's people out there that run an incentive, saying 2 or 3 people win it every single time. By about Wednesday, a few people have gone like, can't really be bothered, because there's only so much you can do manually without it becoming too much hassle than it's worth. Gamification takes this away from you. And that's why I think it's really important to have some level of it to help take almost like the fear out of the KPIs.
So we talked a lot around like gamifying like calls made and things, but we could also, I take it you can add in conversion rates on that as well. So just because you made 100 calls doesn't mean to say, you know, if 99 of them convert, the happy days. If only 1 out of those 100 calls converts, then it's like, you know, you're in the wrong job, basically. Not in the wrong job, that's a terrible thing. But you know, that's not a good environment to be in. So would you tweak those KPIs to not just focus on, you know, number of calls? Is there other things you can pull into that for BD?
When it comes to BD as well, conversion rates and ratios are something that I think are more precedent. Like you said, you don't want to be burning your entire contact list on week 2. An example of this at the moment that I've seen quite run recently is the fact people are using CVs sent to interviews or BD calls to job offers or requirements, so to speak. And being able to use these as a conversion, people have started doing it like the World Cup with like group stages followed by a knockout stage. Those with the highest conversion rates or ratios, as long as it's over a certain value, e.g. if you make 3 CVs and make 1 interview and then do no work for the rest of the week, that's kind of cheating the system. There's always a minimum activity requirement. But being able to like set these competitions up and then put them on TV screens, on screens at home, or even just being able to get it in like a Teams channel when something's changed or happened, is the way how you can then use these other metrics that you want to push. And the flexibility to do this is ridiculous. Like, okay, BD's fell off a cliff this week. I really want to drive the business. Let's gamify a couple of stats that we really want to work on. Okay, I can see that my CV sent to interview ratio is quite low in retrospect. It's like, say, 26-1 or 24, just making numbers up, of course. How can I then incentivize my team to be more careful with their work and being able to use gamification to push the business into the direction you want it to go to without just having to constantly watch over people's shoulders and stuff like that?
Yeah. And that's not a good thing to do either, is it? So when you talked about earlier on there, you mentioned, you know, if you've got your top 3, it's a bit like billers really, isn't it? Most places have got their top billers. If you've got your top sales person and, you know, everyone else is struggling to catch up with them, surely there's an option there to identify how they win and why they win and their outreach and mentoring the maybe newer members in the team as well. So if someone's always the top dog, then that should also give people the opportunity to sort of look at, well, what makes them top dog? How can we go and how can I match that person?
One of the most important things with this as well is the visibility part. If you're just updating it twice a week, like, how is he always winning? There's no sort of, oh, okay, it's fixed or he's doing this and stuff like that. But when it's visible in front of you and you see him slowly rising or her slowly rising up the leaderboard, it sparks those internal conversations. Look, what are you doing differently? Do you mind if I see that? And the visibility of how people work helps create those internal conversations that people want to have. As a team lead, I love it when my guys go out there and I have new starters join the team and within a couple of weeks, they're like, how come you're being able to do this? Why is your ratio better than mine? What are you doing? Is it like a different template? There's a variety of different options which you can almost manipulate the situation. And manipulate sounds like a bad word, but a chiropractor manipulates a back. And no one's really complaining about that. But realistically, when it comes to like ratios and stuff like that as well, if they don't have the visibility to them in the first place, how are they ever supposed to improve on them or know who to look for?
Exactly. So I'm just coming back to what our title was today because we've got a couple of minutes left. Identifying KPIs to effectively retrain recruiters in business development. So I guess what we need to look at honestly is what the targets are, what the goals are, And as you say, start your day with the right mindset, because if you don't start your day with the right mindset, that you'd be as well just going back to bed. It's like, and get the hard ones out of the way first. That's why I quite like this 9 o'clock call, because that means I get this out of the way first thing in the morning. And then I can go and chill out for the rest of the day. I don't know how Angela does this every week, where she gets up and blow dries her hair to perfection. So thanks, Angela, for that for this week. I've thoroughly enjoyed getting up and blow drying my hair every week. Mark, we're going to wrap this up because we're now at 15 minutes. I could talk to you all day about this. I love the gamification.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It does. Maybe Angela will get you back as well for another chat. So listen, thanks again for joining me, and see everybody soon. I'm back tomorrow, and we're talking recruitment websites and why SEO still matters. I've got John Russell on with me then. So thanks again, Mark, and I'll see you all tomorrow morning.
No worries. Yes, thank you very much.